All right, so we'll be on that page first. That's where we'll start. So if you remember yesterday, we learned how to show hundreds, you know, how to break down the number using the pictures, the blocks, right? The model. Everybody remembers that from yesterday? Yeah, we have the big square means 100. The smaller rectangle squares mean 10, and then the single ones mean 1. Everybody's familiar? Yes?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you yes or no. Nobody's shaking their head yes or no or saying yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and look at the first one. So we'll figure out how many was our number total. So now remember, we don't have to count each one, right? The big squares mean 100. The smaller rectangle squares are 10s, and then the single ones are 1s. Okay. So let's begin with number 1. How many 100 box do I have?
4.
Put a 4. In the box next to it under hundreds, you put 4. That's 4 hundreds. Okay. Next, how many 10s do we have? 2 10s.
2.
Okay, and how many ones? How many ones?
6.
So what number did that make?
426.
That's number 1, 426. Number 2, let's look at this one. How many hundreds?
2.
200 blocks. The big squares, 2 of them.
What do you want, Dad? No, my pencil.
All right, how many 10s?
6.
6 10s.
No,
And how many ones?
3.
So number 2 made what number? The picture showed what number? 263.
This is tricky.
Okay, number 3. How many hundreds?
1.
100.
Oh, that's
How many 10s?
0.
0. So put a 0 under 10.
Okay, 0.
And how many ones?
8.
8. So what number did number 3 make?
108.
The picture showed 108.
I was about to say 108.
4. How many hundreds in number 4? 300 blocks. How many 10s?
5.
5 10s.
You wrote it. And the final one, I don't see any.
And how many ones?
0.
0. So number 4, the picture made how many?
350.
Okay, so try 5, 6, and 7 on your own. It's the same thing again. How many hundreds and how many 10s and how many ones?
Miss Lucy, do you make a box?
Uh-uh. All right, so let me see if you, once you're done, you can show it to me. Let me see.
Wait, you're talking on hey. Don't go up to her.
You said.
Her face. Exactly. Right here, Miss Megan. I have all
Miss Legends, I got stuck.
5 seconds.
You have what?
I got stuck.
You got stuck on which one?
2, 3, and 4, and 5.
Okay, so on 2, how many hundreds are on 2?
2.
I'm talking to him. So the hundreds are your big square, your big box. That's 100. So put a 2 under hundreds. And then how many tens you have? The tens are the rectangular
6.
box. 6. Okay, so put a 6 under tens. And then how many ones do you have?
3.
3. So what number did that make?
263.
Okay, and so then number 3, how many hundreds do you have?
1.
1. How many tens?
0.
0. So a 0 under tens. And then how many ones?
9.
Count them again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 108.
108. Good. So you said you had 4 or you don't have 4?
You don't have it, but you're working on it.
So you need 4 as well?
Yes, I am.
You got social behavior.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so number 4, how many hundreds?
3.
Okay. Then how many tens?
0.
Okay. So what number is that?
There's 5. 5.
5 tens. So that's 350. Okay. So you ready for number 5?
There's only 1.
Okay. Are you ready for number 5?
I put 1.
Okay. So you do have 100. And then how many tens do you have?
5.
Okay. 5 tens. And then how many ones?
2.
2. Good. So that's 152. Does everybody have that for number 5?
Yeah.
152. All right, let's look at 6. How many hundreds are in 6?
4.
400. So put a 4.
Wait, I did that. We did that.
And then how many tens?
0.
0 tens.
How many?
And then how many ones?
8.
For number 6?
One.
1. Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, what?
Carried away.
How? So what number is that?
410.
401.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. And 7. How many hundreds?
2.
2 hundreds. How many tens?
8.
8 tens. And then how many ones?
0.
So that made what number?
208.
280.
Okay, she's gonna have to hand it to you.
Okay, Omar, you have them? Yeah. Okay, everybody else has them done?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what it means whenever you have to.
What page are we on?
When you have to create a picture for the numbers, or if you have to have a number and create a picture, this is how it looks. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the board a little bit, and then we'll move. We still have your book. Keep your book out because we have another page in the book, but right now we'll move to the board. And then, so if you have a loose leaf paper, you can get that out so we can work out some problems.
Yeah. 7. Actually, I'll put Matt right here. Well.
Mhm.
I put Matt behind me. No, I didn't. This is the first thing. Friends don't even do that. I gotta keep moving.
Uh-huh.
I'm tired.
Oh, yeah. Well, after we're done, you can take a nap. Everybody has their little sleep paper? All right, let's set up these 3 problems. And you can add them. I'll give you about 2 minutes to add, and let's say 3 minutes, a minute on each problem. About 3 minutes to add them up. You can go ahead and begin. Set all 3 of them up and add all 3 of them. Anna, you can do this one. Okay.
5 plus 8.
Okay, 5 plus 8 equals
13.
Okay, how do I show that?
3, carry the 1.
Put your 3, carry a 1. Okay, what do I do now?
And 1 plus 9 equals 11.
Okay, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 9 is 11. How do I show 11?
Bring it all down.
Bring it all the way down. So that's either, it's actually $1.13 because it's money. $1.13. Make sure that's what you have. Yeah, that's fine.
I did $1.
Yeah, but as long as you have the answer, that's what I mean. When we start to move on to doing dollar bills,
And I
yes,
did the dot.
that will matter. Okay. All right, Evan, come work this one.
Okay. I like the way the dollar bill is performed.
8 plus 9 is not 18. Okay, so we have 2 plus 6 is 8, then 8 plus 9 is 17. So we bring our 7, carry the 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. Then 4 plus 3 is, well, he did 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 9, 97.
I have 97.
Did we get all those answers right? Or you worked them on your own? Okay, awesome.
Wait, 97?
Yeah, 97. Yes, 97. Is something wrong?
I like the dollar one. My favorite.
What?
Can I go ask for my classes now?
She's in the middle of class, so hurry up and come back. All right, so just remember whenever you are adding, if you carry over, please make sure you carry that front number. Okay. All right. Okay, awesome. All right, so today we're also going to learn how to tell time by 5-minute increments. We did already kind of learn it, but just to kind of refresh. So we've learned how to tell time by the hour already. If your minute hand is on 12, that's a brand new hour, o'clock. And we learned how to tell time by half an hour, which is 30 minutes or half past, we would say, which would be our minute hand on the 6. But the minute hand is not always only on the 12 or only on the 6, right? The minute hand can go pretty much anywhere on the clock. You just have to know how to read and tell what time it is. So, does anyone know, whenever I tell time, what do I count by when it comes to the minutes? All of these numbers, I have to count by a certain number. Does anyone know what number I'm counting by when it comes to telling the time? Does anyone know what number I'm counting by? Not 2. Not 2. What number, Harlem?
5.
5. We count by 5. So, whenever we said 12, that was o'clock. Remember, that's a brand new hour, 0, 0. When we go to 1, guess what we say? 5. Now, this is only in regards to minutes on a clock, not the hour. The hour, if it's pointing to the 1, you would say 1. But when your long hand, that minute hand is pointing to the 1, you would actually say 5, not 1. So you would say 5. If it's pointing to the 2, you would say 10. Pointing to the 3, you would say 15. Pointing to the 4, 20. Pointing to the 5, 25. Pointing to the 6, 30, which we learned 30 already. Okay. 7, 35. 8, 40. 9, 45. 10, 50, 11, 55. And we don't say 60, we say o'clock. Remember, we did learn that. I told you we don't say 60, we would say o'clock. So whenever you are telling time, your minute hand goes by 5s. This is the minute hand here. Your hour hand will go by 1s. Okay? So if I have a time, let me show you. Okay, so I did a time. Of course, we always start with our hour first. So my hour is pointing to the what? 3. But my minute hand is pointing to 7. Now it's not 3:07, okay? I would count by 5s to get to the 7. So I would say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So this time is actually 3:35. Your minute hand, whatever number is pointing to, you count by 5s. Okay? Again, your minute hand, that's the long one. When it's pointing to any other number on the clock besides the 6 and 12 that we've learned already, you count by 5. So you would start with 1, count by 5s until you get to that number to know exactly what time it is. Your hour hand, on the other hand, that's your hour hand is 1. So whatever number it's pointing to, that's the number. It's only that minute you have to figure out. Okay, let me show you another one. Okay, my shorthand, hour hand is pointing to the what? 1. And my minute hand is on the what? 4. So when I write this down, do I say 1, 4? No. What do I have to count by with my minutes? So I would say 5, 10, 15, 20. So what time is it? 1:20. Does everyone understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we know how to tell time already?
Yes. We've been kind of, but not with the minutes.
Okay, let me erase this and see that.
My mom taught me.
No.
Miss Lewis, will we write it down? So we won't forget.
Okay, so let me show you another time.
Okay.
Get this. So find your hour first. Then you will count by 5s, and wherever your minute stops, that's what time it is with minutes.
Count it is. Do we have to write it down?
You don't have to.
Am I supposed to write this?
Oh no, I'm just telling you, just reading the time. We're not writing it. Okay, could anyone tell me what time it is? Okay, Omar. So your hour, your shorthand is pointing to the what?
4.
4. And then count by 5s. Huh?
4:40.
4:40. Good. So you will count by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Remember, you only count by 5s with the minute. Okay, let's look at another one.
I want to know what's next. Back in front. Students.
Okay, can anyone tell me what time is it on this clock?
8:55.
8:55.
50.
One more. An hour, minute.
Kind of hard.
Okay, anyone can tell me what time it is? Solomon?
12:45.
Wait, you got your hands backwards?
12:25.
12:25. Good. Good. Awesome. Okay. So there's a workbook page, but we'll get to it. We'll do it tomorrow. Actually, we won't do it today. So you can skip that page for tomorrow and have clocks on it. We'll practice it on tomorrow. So this is just telling time in 5-minute increments. Anytime your minute hand is pointing to a number, you count by 5s to figure out what time it is with that hand. Hour is simply using the 1s. Okay. All right. So up here I have 3 numbers. I want to put them in order from least to greatest. So I have 32, 48, 19. When I put them in order from least to greatest, which one would go first? It's my least, my smallest. Josiah?
19.
Good. 19. Which one will be next after 19? Who?
Me?
Yeah.
32.
32. And then obviously the greatest one is 48. So my least is 19. My biggest is 48. Which number out of the three is my middle number? What would be my middle number out of the three? Anyone? It's the same as nobody. Okay. All right, Brian, which one is the middle?
32.
32. So just to teach you another word you'll start to see in your book, the word is median. Median means your middle number. Okay? So if the book ever asks what is the median, that means what is your middle number. And out of these three, now you have to put them in order first. You can't say the middle number is 9, like if we would have looked at it like this and said the middle was number 48, and we never put it in order from least to greatest. So you have to put a set of numbers in order from least to greatest first. Then you determine which one is your median, which is your middle number. So let's look at these right here. So I have 129, 174, 136. Let's put them in order from least to greatest first. Okay, which one is my least? Smallest. Okay, Josiah. You don't want to hear like sweet.
129.
129 is my least. Which one would be next behind 129?
136.
136, and then obviously my largest one is my greatest is 174. Which one of these three numbers is the median?
That's what it is.
Which one is the median? Amina?
136.
136 is my median. That's my middle number. So your median means your middle number. After you put them in order from least to greatest, whichever one is that middle number is called your median. Okay? So if you run across the word median, that's what it means, middle. All right, awesome. All right, go ahead and get out your phonics book. Let's do our dictation.
This is why. I want to be prepared for this test, so I got to write this.
Miss Prudence, what page is it?
153.
I just went to 160. But get out. Okay. Good job.
It's nice. Is it on black?
Good job.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, so let's go ahead. You'll write these nouns. I'm sorry, I will say the phrase, sentence. You have to write the name in a possessive form, okay? So if I would say, don't write this, I'm just giving you an example. If I would say the dog's bone, the dog had a bone, you would say dog's bone. So what do we do to show that something is possessive? What do we put on it to show that it's a possessive noun? Anyone remembers? Okay, Hannah, what do we do to show that a noun is possessive?
S.
We put apostrophe S. So when I write dogs, I would put D-O-G apostrophe S, then the word bone. So that's what you're going to do. So I'll tell you a sentence like I just did, and you have to write the who and what they're possessing. But make sure when you put their name, you're writing it down as a possessive noun. So I have Bob has $1. Bob has $1. How would I write that as a possessive phrase? Bob has $1.
Wait, we have to write it down?
Yeah, in the boxes. That's why there's 2 boxes down there. So you have 2 boxes on the left. So Bob has $1. How would I say that?
Two, four, boom.
Okay, so Bob has $1. How would I show Bob has $1 as a possessive phrase? Okay, Solomon, what you have?
Bob's dollar.
Bob's, B-O-B apostrophe S, dollar. Did everyone put that? Bob's dollar. That's the possessive phrase of Bob has $1. We're showing that Bob, the dollar belongs to who? Bob. Bob's dollar. Next one. Doug has a kite. Doug has a kite. How do we make that a possessive phrase?
Was that the last one recorded? Nope, you have the bottom. No, the last one for the up? Yes, yep. Because there's only both of these.
Excuse me. And get that out of your mouth. Okay, how would I say Doug has a kite in a possessive phrase? How would I say that? Doug has a kite. Josiah?
Dog's kite.
Doug's kite.
I said like dog's kite. I dug a hole. Help me.
All right, let's go ahead and do the bottom. So I'll give you a word. Write the special sound you hear in the word. First word is morning. Morning. Write one of the special sounds you hear in morning.
Your one. Morning.
Okay, what is our sound in morning, Evan?
O-O.
O-R.
I have ing.
Well, yeah, ing was 1, 2. Okay, next word, leaf. Leaf.
Fire. Before you don't get to do anything at all. You're gonna call your mom for sleeping.
Okay, what's the sound in leaf? Anyone? Leaf? Okay, Harlem.
E-A.
E-A-E. Good. Okay, and then the last one, write this entire word. The word is northeast. Northeast. Write the entire word, northeast.
Wait, is northeast an actual word, Miss Reading? Kill, yes, yes, it is a lot. Look at these is a lot. Another piece is a real word. But you can see.
Go to sleep.
Okay, could someone spell northeast for us? Northeast. Okay, Camille.
Northeast.
Yes, Northeast, northeast. Good. Awesome. All right, good. So that's your dictation for today. We'll do a little bit more on tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our science and social studies. Looking at your science book, we're moving to our next habitat. Okay, 72, forest habitat.
Science. 72. What is your color lesson? And you're gonna get an S.
So animals of the forest habitat.
Students,
Mm-hmm.
may I use the bathroom?
Sure. All right, so we've learned about the ocean habitat. Last week we talked about the pond habitat. Does anyone remember some things about the pond habitat that we discussed on last week? Okay, go ahead, Evan.
Bluewhales eat a lot of krill. I mean,
This is the ocean?
Beavers.
There's beavers that live in the pond habitat, okay? Okay, any other things? So no one remembers anything from the pond habitat last week?
I remember.
Okay, Serenity?
I remember eating ball.
Girls live at the pond.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Turtles live at the pond.
Turtles live in a pond, yes, okay. Solomon?
What supposed to say? Beavers live in a pond and they are called engineers.
Yes, beavers are called engineers because of the homes that they build. What are their homes called?
Oh, I know, a dam.
Dam or a lodge, yes, that's what their home is called. Right, so how do beavers help the pond? Like, why are they so important to the pond, Brian? Pretty much they help with the water in the pond. What about the grass around the pond?
They help it make nutrients.
Yes, they help it to grow really well.
They make it green.
They make it really green and you know, really a lot of grass, right? So beavers have a big job in the pond, and when they built their lodge or their dam, they really help the pond, the water and the area around the pond. Good. So who helps the food chain to stay really balanced in the pond habitat? Camille?
The turtle.
The turtle, good. So who would be considered a top predator in the pond?
The turtle. The turtle.
Basically the turtle, yeah, because he's the only one that eats really other things. The beaver, yeah, he's a bigger animal, but the beaver doesn't eat like things like that. Yeah, he's more of prey for animals that are in the habitat we're talking about today. All right, so the animals of the forest habitats. All right, So yeah, I'll let you all read. Well, no, because of time. I'm gonna read.
Okay.
I was gonna let y'all, but yeah. All right, so animals of the forest habitat. The ocean and pond habitats were water habitats. This is our first land habitat, meaning this habitat is strictly on land. There's no water, part of it is strictly on land. What very large plant do you think the forest depends on? Trees, of course. The forest is filled with a ton of trees. Okay? Forest animals like bears and owls and chipmunks depend on the trees for food and shelter. Trees also give off plenty of oxygen for people and animals to breathe. So in the forest habitat, we know that habitat is filled with hundreds of trees. The trees are used not only to give off oxygen to the animals, but also as food and shelter for a lot of the animals that live in this habitat. So without the trees, these animals will not be able to survive in their habitat because they need the trees for a lot of things. So let's talk about water. So do you know that, do you think a chipmunk needs a lot of water to live?
Yes.
Well, not like an ocean. He probably needs water, but not like a ton of it. So inside of the forest, of course, remember, all habitats need 4 things: water, space, food, shelter. So of course, even though a forest habitat is a land habitat, there still are sources of water. Those sources of water would be streams, rivers, lakes, ponds. All of these things are sources of water that the animals can go to get water. Now, the majority, meaning most of the habitat, is land, but there are parts of it where you could find a stream, you could find a lake, you could find a pond, a river, all of that, and the animals will go there to get water. Now, do you think those are fresh water or salt water?
Fresh.
It has to be fresh water, right? If it's salt water, those animals would not be able to drink that, right? So the water inside of the forest habitat is, the water inside of that it comes from streams, lakes, rivers, and ponds, okay? So let's talk about the space. Now, God designed every forest to be the exact size that the animals living it would need. Some forests are so large that many animals can live there, and it can cover many miles of land. So our animals that live inside of the forest would be like bears, would be like coyotes, wolves, mountain lions, cougars. All of these types of animals live in the forest, and they're pretty big. So that means there needs to be a lot of space for them to be able to live freely. Also, all the trees in there, all those trees need room to grow, right? So the forest is pretty big. Now, there are some forests that are smaller, but there's still a great enough size for the animals that need to live there. Food inside of the habitat. Remember, food is something they need. There are many predators in the forest. A lot of predators, meaning there's a lot of animals that are hunting. The bear, he can eat both plants and meat. The bear is the top predator in the forest. He usually hunts for everything else, right? So the top predator in the forest habitat would be the bear. Now, there's other predators. He's not the only one, but he's the top predator. No one is usually hunting for bears. Unless
only bears could.
Yeah, but they really don't. So on page 74, let's talk about another predator. The owl is also a predator inside of the forest. One owl family can eat hundreds of mice and rats each year. So the owls are also predators. Now, owls, they can hunt for a lot of things, right? They can hunt a lot of things, but their biggest thing they hunt are mice, because mice live in the forest. Mice, they can have like 20 babies at one time, and they have a lot of babies a lot of times, So owls hunt for the mice and the rats. They also eat rabbits, different things like that. You'll even find some owls can kill like a deer. Yeah. So owls are also predators as well. They hunt for different animals. Now, it's good that the owls hunt for the mice because mice can spread diseases. And so it's good that owls eat the mice, right? Because it helps it stops the mice from spreading so many diseases. So the owls can eat like hundreds of mice a day. Yeah, it's crazy.
How much?
That's too much.
That's a lot. Well, that's what they like.
How much to be exact though?
So chipmunks eat nuts and seeds. So we have animals like chipmunks. They are prey usually. They will eat nuts and seeds. And then also like what I just said, the rabbits. So prey inside of a forest will be like rats, deer, chipmunks, squirrels, rabbits, bunnies, foxes. Well, foxes are like both. A fox can be both a prey and a predator, right? If you look at the food chain picture here. So remember, all food chains start with a plant. Then we have the bunny that'll come eat the plant. Then the fox will eat the bunny. Then a coyote will kill the fox. And then a bear will kill the coyote. So you see how it works? It's just a cycle.
Coyote. That's a coyote? I thought that was a wolf.
A wolf, coyote, same thing. So yeah, okay. So that's how the animals in the forest habitat works. So the top predator is a bear. Some other predators will be like coyotes, wolves, not eagles, owls. They would all be considered predators inside of the forest habitat. Let's talk about shelter because we just said the trees are the shelter for all of these animals. So some animals do not have any one place as their home. They can go wherever they find food. Many animals do have homes. If we look closely in the forest, we can find many different kinds of animal homes. Some animals live in holes inside of the trees. Some animals will build their nests inside of the trees, like birds and squirrels, chipmunks. Their homes are usually in holes or inside of the tree. Chipmunks on page 76, they dig tunnels or burrows in the ground. The chipmunk started digging a hole, but he closed it up with the dirt. The opening he uses is hidden by tall grass. He stores nuts and seeds to eat during the cold winter. So chipmunks will hibernate in their little burrows, and also bunnies build burrows as well, meaning they live inside of the ground. They live inside of the ground and they hibernate in their burrows during the winter. So during their hibernation, their body temperature will lower, their organs start to slow down, and they'll fall into a deep winter sleep, which that's what they're going through right now because we're in the winter season now. So you won't really find a lot of chipmunks and squirrels out right now because usually they're hibernating because it's winter time. So you have some animals that live in trees. Some of them dig tunnels in the ground, like burrows inside of the ground, and that's where they live, and they usually try to stay safe inside of there. Okay, and on 77, some animals like bears will build a den in the ground near the roots of an old tree. Bears hibernate, but they don't fall into a deep winter sleep. Their body temperature doesn't change, and this helps them wake up quickly if them or their cubs are in danger. So some animals live in trees, some animals live in burrows or tunnels in the ground, and some of them, like bears, will build a den that they will live in with their, their bear family. So this is the forest habitat, and I told you forest habitats usually are near ponds most of the time. Sometimes you don't, like if there's a pond like at a park or something, you won't usually. But anyway, they're usually near a pond, and so the pond is usually used as water in a forest habitat. If it's not a pond, it'll be a stream, a lake, a river, something like that would be usually inside of the forest habitat. Okay, so that's our forest habitat this week. We'll look at some pictures and stuff on tomorrow, like what we do on Wednesdays, kind of looking at some stuff dealing with the forest habitat. Okay, all right, let's go to your social studies. So we'll talk more about the pioneers. So remember, the pioneers were one of the first people who decided that they wanted to travel west. Could you close the door? There was nothing in the west. And so these people left the east. They were some of the first people to leave the east and travel to the west. They were brave because there was nothing in the west. And so they decided they would still leave anyway and travel west.
What page is it?
Okay, so we're on page 90. Pioneer of pioneers. So let's talk about the pioneers and how they made their way to the west. So in 1775, the land that makes up Kentucky was bought from the Cherokee Indians. At that time, Kentucky was a wilderness of thick woods. So everyone is familiar with Kentucky, the state?
Yeah.
I'll show you on the map where Kentucky is.
Especially because of the mountains.
We don't have that.
Yes, they do. They have a public called Kentucky.
Yeah, that's the red. Okay, so here's the map. This is Kentucky here. Okay, so Kentucky before it was discovered was a land full of just thick woods, all kinds of forests, all kinds of woods. The Cherokee Indians actually owned Kentucky. This was their property that they owned. But in 1775, some of the people who were traveling west decided to buy the land from the Cherokee Indians because they wanted to, you know, make their own place and also to settle this place. So while many Americans were fighting the war for independence, there was a man named Daniel Boone, and he was one of America's first pioneers. Led by Daniel, 30 men with axes chopped a path from Virginia all the way to Kentucky because they're all near each other. See that? Virginia, Kentucky. So this man, Daniel Boone, paved a path from Virginia all the way to Kentucky for people to get there so that they could start to settle inside of Kentucky. So it was a rough path through forests and mountains. So not only did they have to chop through some forests, but they had to climb through some mountains as well. And this became known as Wilderness Road. So this path from Virginia to Kentucky that they made as they started to travel west was called Wilderness Road. As the years passed, thousands of pioneer families traveled through this path of Wilderness Road from Virginia to Kentucky. So it was one of the first paths that was created that people took whenever they started to travel west. Remember, they have all of this to discover, right? All they had was all the East Coast. Then they slowly started to push away going towards the west. So Wilderness Road from Virginia to Kentucky, Daniel Boone and his 30 men were the first people to pave this way, this path where people could pass through as they started to travel west. Okay? So at the end of Wilderness Road, there's a settlement named Boonesboro, which was built in honor of Daniel Boone. Boonesboro, Daniel Boone. So Daniel Boone helped to pave this path to help people as they were traveling to the west. It's called Wilderness Road from Virginia to Kentucky. So look at page 91. So over time, thousands of families wanted to be pioneers. They traveled across the Great Plains, which is all of this area here. It's called the Great Plains. If you remember in first grade, we actually did cover the Great Plains. All of this area here, Great Plains. So they traveled across the Great Plains, and many even traveled to the other side of the Rocky Mountains. The families, when they traveled, they decided to travel together as groups, kind of like a family vacation, right? They all decided to travel together in groups called wagon trains. Together, they could help each other in times of trouble. So, you know, traveling alone and by themselves, that was kind of hard, right? Traveling by yourself, trying to chop through the trees, going through this land that you had no clue about, wild animals all over. Well, it was safer to travel in a group. So they decided to start traveling in a group, which was that's known as the wagon trains. So the families, they would leave the East all together. It could be like 10, maybe 20 families at one time, leaving together in their wagon trains. As you can see on the picture here, up there, that's a family of them traveling together. So they would travel as a group, and it was safer that way. So a wagon master is the person who would usually lead the way. And this was someone who had actually taken the journey before, so they knew exactly where to go. He knew the dangers. He knew where to find food. He knew where to find water. It was his job to safely lead all of the families wherever they wanted to settle. So they had a route that was over the Rocky Mountains into Oregon, okay? And this was known as the Oregon Trail. So we have, as they're traveling west, this is Oregon right here, state right here. So they had another path they would use traveling through, and it was called the Oregon Trail. That's what they would use to travel through. So they made paths that they would usually take to get them to wherever they were trying to go on the west, okay? So in 1843, there was one group of people. Guess how many families were in this? 1,000 families were in one of these trains. Not all of them, but in this particular train, that was one of the most families, at one time, there was a lot of families at one time that traveled, trying to go to Oregon. They had left Missouri, which is right here, Missouri, and they traveled all the way to Oregon. So it doesn't seem far on a map, but it kind of is, It's a long ways, probably like a day or two. Now that's driving. Imagine traveling in a wagon. That probably took like weeks for them to get there. Yeah. So a bunch of people were able to leave the East, and they took a lot of these paths like Wilderness Road, the Oregon Trail. They took a lot of these paths that led them to the West Coast. So, and it was because of those first pioneers who started out first. They were the first ones to make way, the paths for the people to travel on. Let's look at 92. So let's talk about what they needed to take on their journey. That was super important. As they journeyed, they had to make sure to have everything they needed so that they could have a successful trip, because they were leaving everything. Remember, they're moving. So they took all their stuff from the east and started to travel to the west. Because there was no stores along the way. See, and that's the cool thing now. If we go on vacation now and we forget something home, we can usually just go to a store, right? To a Walmart or a Target or something and buy what we need. But they didn't have that at this time. So whatever you didn't have, you just didn't have it. So because there were no stores, they had to make sure to pack all of the supplies that was necessary for them on their journey. If their food ran out, then they would starve. They didn't want to starve. If they did not pack enough warm clothing and blankets, they would become sick. So food, warm clothing, and blankets could not be forgotten. They had to make sure to take at least those three things, because it would get cold, right? And they didn't want to freeze. And it was a long journey, so they wanted to make sure that they took enough food to cover them that time they would be traveling. So they would take bags of flour. Now, if you don't know, you can do a lot with flour, right? You can bake biscuits, you can make cake, you can make pancakes, a lot of things. Anything that's bread comes from flour. So they could do a lot with the bag of flour, and they also took cornmeal, which they could make cornbread with that as well as coffee, bacon. They loaded all of that into the wagon. They also would take sacks of sugar, rice, and beans. So these are all different things they would take with them on their journey. So they had to make sure they had enough food so that they would be, okay, they wouldn't starve. They also would pack, of course, kettles and coffee pots to cook all that food in, because they didn't have like pots like we have now. So they would use kettle pots and coffee pots to cook in. So not only the food, but they also packed axes and nails, because they would have to build homes, right? There was nothing in the West, so they would have to start it all over and build their homes. So they made sure to pack all the tools that they would need to build their homes. They also knew they would have to start to make their own food. So they would have to have the gardens, right? They would have to start planting their own gardens. So they would take plows to break the ground and seeds to plant in their gardens. So they were basically starting everything over. They were leaving the East, going to the West, and starting life all over again. Sometimes they would take a cow with them, and we know a cow can give a lot of things, right? Yes, a cow can give you milk, a cow can give you cheese, a cow can give you meat, right? All of that. So the people would take a cow with them, usually, where they will be able to get a lot of different things at one time from the cow. Okay? After all, and the butter also comes from a cow too. I forgot to say that. After all these things were packed, there was hardly any room left inside of the wagon for other things. So the women, they had to make sure when they packed those things first, and anything else that didn't fit, like furniture, dishes, if it didn't fit in the wagon, they had to just leave it. They have to leave it. So they had to make sure they had all those other things first. And then if they had room for any other things, they would put those things in there. So they had to make sure to pack what was most important, and that was food, warm clothing, their pots. All of that was more important than everything else. They could start all over again. Okay? So they would also take books for their children to read as well. So the men had to choose the animals to pull their wagon. They didn't use horses, they would use oxen were usually stronger than horses, so they would use oxen to pull their wagons because it was a tough journey, a long journey, and the oxen would be a lot stronger. They kind of look like cows, but they're a little different. You heard oxtails? Yeah. Anyway, so they would often take the oxen, and the oxen would be the ones who would pull the wagon trains. Okay. So if they did take anything during the journey that they tried to take, like maybe some furniture or something, if it got too hard to carry that, especially when they started getting into areas that have mountains, they would just throw it out the wagon and leave it there. Right? So that's why they had to be careful what they chose to pack. Because if they packed something that would have been too hard to get across the mountains with, they would have to throw it out so that it would the wagon wouldn't be so heavy and have so much weight. Okay? And so they would often leave. So at that time, if you were traveling, you would often see like weird pieces of furniture, pianos, all of that on the trail, because families would have to throw those things out along the way because it would get too heavy. So it was just best that they packed what they needed, which was food, warm clothing, blankets, things like that. Okay? Sometimes they would take chickens with them too. Again, chickens can give you eggs. You can get meat from chickens as well. So they just, it was all families were different. Some would bring their cows, some would bring chickens, some would have both. But they had to make sure they had all of what they needed before they left the east when traveling to the west. Okay, so it's very important that they packed the right things. So on 93, there is something you can do. Imagine you are a pioneer and write down a list. Pretend you are a pioneer traveling, and you have to make a list of some of the things that you would need to take with you as you are traveling to the west.
I was writing half of it down.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's your social studies this week. When we come back from the break, we'll read a story about a family that decided to travel west and just what they went through as they traveled west. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna do that one.
So we'll stop here. All right. So that's your social studies on the pioneers, Daniel Boone, who made one of the paths, the wilderness road in particular, for people to travel west. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do our reading, and then we'll be done for the day.
I'm going.
Okay.
Can I go?
Mm-hmm. What? All right, we're on the stag, page 70.
The stag. What's the
stag? I'm gonna take a piece of tissue. Okay. All right, the stag, page 70. Come on.
I gotta write once upon a time first because it is a long story.
May I read, Miss Flugent?
Okay.
Evans, yeah, everyone do 70. You can do 71.
Once upon a time, a stag came to a cool spring to drink. The water was clear and quiet, and the stag could see himself in it. How beautiful my actions are, thought the stag. how graceful they look on each side of my head. I would be very happy if my legs were as beautiful as my antlers, but um, but I am ashamed of these long, slender legs. While the stag was looking at himself in the water, a hunter with some dogs saw him with slender legs, which he had to best easily and carried him away from the dogs.
Okay. All right, so we're introduced to a stag, right? And the stag is looking in the mirror at itself, right? And it's, admiring its beautiful antlers. Okay. But what did the stag not like about itself?
It's the leg.
The legs, the long, slender legs, right? They didn't like the way their legs looked. Okay. So then a hunter with some dogs sees him. Let's see on 71. Carla, unmute.
He ran quickly over the fields, and the hunter could not find him. Soon Stag came to the forest, and his long horns caught in the branches of a tree. Before the stag could get away, the hunter and his dogs found him. When the stag knew that he would be caught, he cried, "The slender legs that I once displayed could have saved my life, but the horns which were my pride have been my downfall."
Okay. So the stag starts to run away. And what helps him to get away?
His leg.
Those legs that he didn't like, but what made him get caught?
His
The
horns.
antlers that he so loved and thought were the best, they ended up getting caught in a tree. And does the stag get caught?
Yes.
Yep, he gets caught. So he should have been
sad.
grateful for those
Did he
legs.
die?
Those legs. Probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were hunting. So yeah.
That was
So unfortunately,
it was only
he thought the antlers were the best thing about him, and look at the antlers, they got him caught in the tree. So that's unfortunate. Okay, 72, the lark and her young ones.
Can I do this? Can I read this one, Miss Blue?
I'm trying to see who I lost. Harlem. Okay, Brian. The lark and her young one, 72.
It always that compassion.
A lark once made her nest in a field of grass. It was in
BAR says
early summer, and she was afraid that the
OWO.
moors would come to cut down the grass before her young ones would be able to fly to a place of safety. When she went out to look for food, she told them to remember everything that they should hear. The farmer
Close the door.
say, and to tell her when she returned.
Mhm.
When she was gone, the young larks heard the farmer's
Three. And ARs are remark
to his son, I think this grass is right. And enough gold
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Okay, good. So we're introduced to the lark and her young ones, right? And so what was she worried about?
The farmer's cutting down
The farmer's cutting down the grass because who is in the grass? Her babies, right? Her young ones. And so she told them to remember everything that who would say? The farmer, if they would hear the farmer say anything, right? So they do hear the farmer speaking. And what does he say?
He said this grass is right to
He's gonna cut it tomorrow. All right, let's see what she tells her if they tell their mom. Okay, Josiah 73 and then Omar, you're the 74.
Go tomorrow morning and ask our friends and neighbors to come help us mow it. Soon afterward, the mother lark came back. Her little ones alarmed told her what the farmer had said. Take us to a safe place, mother, they cried. The mother replied, fear not, for if the farmer depends on his friends and neighbors, the grass will not be cut tomorrow. Next day, leaving the same order as before, she flew out again to seek for food. The farmer came to the field and waited, looking for his friends and neighbors, but the sun rose high and still no one came.
Okay, so the farmer is dependent upon his friends and neighbors to help him. Was the lark worried when he said that? No, she wasn't worried because she said, what would his friends and neighbors do? They would not come. That's what she said. And sure enough, the next day, do they come? No. They did not. Okay, 74, Omar. Sit.
Then the farmer said to his sons, those friends and neighbors of ours had not come to help us. Go to your uncles and cousins and ask them to come early tomorrow morning and help us mow our grass. Then the sun went away and he was told, and the young larks were in a great fright. What did I do? When the mother returned, she made them repeat what the farmer had said. If that is all he said, she
Did not be frightened, dears, for uncles and cousins are not always ready to help one another. But be sure to listen again tomorrow and tell me what you hear. Next day she flew away as usual for food. The farmer came down to the field with his son, but not an uncle or nor a cousin was there to meet him. So he said, well, George, tomorrow morning we will mow the grass ourselves.
Okay, awesome. So the friends and the neighbors did not come. So then the farmer said the uncles and the cousins, did they come? No, and the young lark knew this. She knew they would not come as well. So she said, okay. So then who did the farmer finally say would have to cut the grass with him? His son? His son. Okay. So 75, Solomon. Yeah, he was talking about his
When the
son.
morning lark was told this, she said, now it's time for us to go be gone. For when a man sets out to do his work himself, he is not likely to fail. So saying, she and her young ones flew away to another field, and the grass was cut the next day by the farmer and his son. They had learned what the larks knew already, that work is done the best and the most quickly when people help themselves.
Good. So now that the lark heard that the son would be cutting the grass, she knew it was time for them to leave. And did the farmer and his son cut the grass?
Yes.
Yes. So the lark left, and her and her babies were safe. And so the lesson from that is just, the best work is done and quickly when we sometimes just do it ourselves, right? If we depend upon people, sometimes they won't do it for us. So sometimes we just got to get it done on our own. All right, good. All right, so that's your story for today on the young lark, the lark and her young ones. Okay. All right, so that's it for today, guys. That's all of our lessons for the day. All right, so to complete everything, yeah.